Hello and welcome to the show. My guest today is Charley Voorhis. He's the owner of Voortex Productions, and he's been a full-time filmmaker here in our valley since 2013. We talk about his busy 2025, the films and work he produced, and the stories he helped tell throughout the country and here in our valley. Enjoy the show. Hi, Charley. Thank you for being here. I saw your post the other day and I thought I want to have him on for a conversation again because you're always up to good things in our community and actually quite beyond our community. So thank you for being here.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
So you've been on the show before. You've been a full-time filmmaker since 2013, so a good bit of time now. Just for those who aren't familiar with you or your work, tell us about what that transition was like and how you've managed something to achieve this that a lot of people don't ever quite achieve. It's usually maybe sometimes a side hustle or a dream that they maybe even give up on along the way.
Weird. Yeah. So it was a side hustle for the first 9 years. I started the company in 2004 and I had numerous jobs and owned a couple small businesses up in Leavenworth. And then I taught filmmaking at the tech center here in Wenatchee those last 4 years of that initial 9 years. And that was an opportunity to kind of connect with the community and I guess bring my name into the conversation about video production. And that led to a lot of client work that then gave me enough of a business to leave teaching and do it full time. So that was the dream all along, but it took me 9 years to get there.
I think sometimes people, they give up before they turn that bend. Mm-hmm. 9 years, if you sat down and said, okay, it's going to take me 9 years to do this, would you have made it to the 9 years, right? Or is it just the continual work at it, getting work and fitting it into your other part of your life?
Yeah. I've heard that 10,000 hour rule or whatever they call it. And it's like, if you were to, put 20 to 30 hours a week into something for roughly 10 years, that's like the 10,000 hour rule. But I'll have new production company owners talk to me pretty frequently. I wouldn't say that I'm a mentor necessarily, but they'll ask me for advice or they'll reach out to me to talk about, what I might recommend for their business. And they say like, oh, I've been doing this for like 7 months and it's just not quite working. And I'm like, I feel for you, but
that's not how it works.
You got to really hold this dream for a long time. And it could take years, if not the better part of 10 years before it can be a full-time, like support you through life type of job.
When you say hold it, I mean, it even can be that you're holding it before you even start to implement it. So the 9 years it took you, plus however long you grew that dream and built those skills to even hold a camera and get paid for it. Right? So,
yeah. It occurred to me somewhat recently that my senior project in high school was actually to write a business plan for a company called Voortex Productions. And at the time, I didn't necessarily think that would actually be a thing, but that was the only idea I could come up with for my senior project. But, to have a production company or to work in video was something that, was planted in me probably around the time I was 16, maybe 15 or 16. And so it's one of those things that's just, if that's what you're passionate about, then just keep going at it. And if it takes 10 years, it takes 10 years.
Yeah, the time's going to pass anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll get questions from people. How do you become a writer? And I said, well, all you have to do is write to be a writer, but to be an author, that's a whole different thing. And that's a different set of skills and it's a different set of disciplines. Learning. And then there's marketing and there's all kinds of things, especially nonfiction. They want to know that you're, are marketable. Mm-hmm. And so I think today's work it's a completely different thing, right? Because you have a skill set based on the equipment and the gear that you have. And in today's day, you can do it with a phone. You really can. And speakers, you and I were talking off camera about the little speakers you can get for like $40 that work really well. And I think one of the biggest things that sound is so important. And people hopefully don't realize it's so important because they only notice it when it's not good. Mm-hmm. And so to have that kind of a device where you can go out and shoot and do things. My son used to make kendama videos. Do you even know what
Oh, I love them. Yeah.
all he did. It's all he did. And they were, those shots and getting the best shot and getting the best angle and putting it to music. He was so skinny because he never stopped moving. He was just constantly, it's this condom, it's like a stick and you have to get the ball on the stick, and kids make videos of them. And they put it to music, and it's a way to do it. And they didn't even have the abilities. I can't even imagine what kids can do today with those in the films that I see in made by students, and even our school program. They'll come and show us different things that they've done on their own, and that's what we try to teach them too. Is you're not limited by anything, and even technology now.
Mhm. Yeah, and kind of referencing to that microphone and audio quality, there's a saying in our industry that, beautiful footage put to bad audio is going to make a bad video, but bad footage with really good audio might make a really good video. We don't want to give audio as much credit as it really deserves, but it is the defining factor of whether or not somebody's going to, consider a video high quality or even tolerable enough to watch,
Yeah,
bad
because you think
audio.
about a documentary style, some of that footage is old.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, and that doesn't seem to matter if the narration's good or the story behind it. And how do you tell a story? You can tell it with film, obviously, but if you don't have the great film, or if you have the great film plus the audio, and there's all kinds of tricks too for audio. You use a good camera to start, but even for my podcast, I just run it through an enhancer, even though it sounds really good. But you can toggle between the two of what it sounded like and what it actually could sound like if it's just enhanced a bit. And you got to be careful with that too. If you do too much, it sounds like you're in a really tight room. But I don't know how to do anything that you know how to do, but I got a couple tricks up my sleeve that make at least what I do a little bit better.
Those audio enhancers are pretty standard in our video editing software now too. Just kind of doing this AI enhancer that doesn't change the voice, but it goes in and it recognizes what's noise and it just
Mhm.
puts that out for you.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a second since you brought it up. How has AI changed the work that you do? Or has it? Or how do you decide how much you let it change the work you
Yeah.
do?
I mean, that's a huge question, and so I'll try to capture it.
It could be the whole episode.
Yeah, but usually, yeah. But it hasn't, me personally, it hasn't changed a lot, but it's very present. And I'm in the camp where I see it as a tool, and there are things that are, I can implement it as a tool and help me get to my goal faster. I don't use it to generate footage. And luckily, I think in the space that I'm in is a lot of the clients capture me to come and film the activities that they're doing on site. And AI wouldn't ever play a role in recreating what they're doing. The whole point is to showcase the work that they're doing. Um, there's a lot of AI in kind of the commercial space, and I'm sure you've seen on Instagram and Facebook, you'll swipe through and you'll see these ads for diet programs or whatever they are, where it's just like, you can do this in 10 days or whatever. And it's like, it's a AI generated character.
Yes, for sure.
And that's an okay implementation of AI, but I haven't seen it encroach on my work directly. Other than, like I said, there's plenty of tools that are being added to my workflow.
The
But
efficiency of
occasionally,
it. Yeah.
yeah. And occasionally I'll have a client that'll maybe have an idea that they want me to do, and sometimes I'll just recommend that they generate that on AI. Like you really don't need me to necessarily do this thing that you have. So I feel like it's becoming more accessible for some businesses to create marketing content and commercial um, elements to their business, at a really cost-effective rate where they don't have to hire a professional filmmaker. And so I feel like finding that line of like, this should be an AI generated thing, and you should turn that around as quick as you can and see if you can, get your message out. But this, might be something that you should reserve and invest a little bit more time and energy into making it a true, authentic portrayal of who you are and what you do and why you do it.
And that's probably why you'll be able to work in this industry for as long as you want, because of that honest advice, right? And when they are ready to do that next thing, well, that's the obvious choice.
Yeah.
Let's take a minute and take a break. And then I want to talk about some of the projects you've been doing, because I saw your Facebook post that said, what was it? Let me look. 106 unique deliverables, which means 106 different pieces of content to your clients in the 365 days of the year. Like when you think about it, with 365 days, 106 pieces is a lot. And some of it takes you away to other towns. So we'll talk about that and talk about all those details in just a moment. We'll be back. We're back talking with you, Charley Voorhis. I wanted to talk about some of the projects you've done lately because I read your post on on Facebook about the 106 different deliverables you had over the last 365 days of 2025. And one of them was a project in the city of Rosslyn. And you were talking about off camera how much you learned not knowing about Rosslyn, someplace so close to us. So tell us a little bit about what you learned and just we'll dive a little deeper into that experience.
Sure. So yeah, the last few years I've been making kind of one film a year for the city of Rosslyn, little mini documentaries. The first two, I had always seen a lot of remnants of coal mining throughout the town, and I didn't know, the extent of or the significance that coal mining had on that community. But this this third film that I put together for them specifically focused on the number 9 mine, which is now the location of Swiftwater Cellars out there near Suncadia. And it was kind of a deep dive into learning about the history of coal mining in Rosslyn. And there was a lot of attraction to the area because of the coal. And so there were a lot of people that came from Croatia and other parts of the world to work in the mines. And there was 9 mines, and number 9 was the last one to shut down. And it was fascinating. We got to interview a guy that was one of the last, I think there's only 4, maybe 5 people that are still surviving workers who actually worked in the mine. And so I got to interview this guy. He only got to work in there for about a year and a half before they shut down the mine in his early 20s. But to sit down and hear the stories about what it was like to go down in the coal mine and, ride the car down this huge 2,100-foot hole in the ground.
Okay, right. One of the things that I think is fascinating about the work you do is you go in and you get to tell a story, not completely unlike having a conversation with a person about, anywhere on camera or not, and get to learn more about them. But then when you take an even deeper dive that requires footage and knowledge and narration and voiceover and all of the things that go along with telling a documentary or story in documentary form. So you have these conversations, and you and I were talking about how City of Rosslyn, I just think Northern Exposure, Janine Turner, the show, like I don't know the history of Rosslyn, and nor would you have had you not embarked on this. So when you get to be part of that, like, so you go to Rosslyn and you gather this information. Obviously you do a lot of post-production, or all of your post-production here, so that you don't have to be gone. But how long are you gone when you say you do a film a year that's of this length and entirety?
Yeah, so that specific film was, I think, 4, maybe 5 unique trips to Rosslyn. Luckily, it's only an hour away, so I can drive to and from. Excuse me. There are a handful of projects though where I have to fly, and when I fly, I try to consolidate the entire project into one trip, and so I might be on a location for 3 to 5 days and just try to shoot as much as I can. And those days are usually pretty long. I call them Hail Mary shoots, where it's just like sunrise to sunset and just plow through as hard as you can.
Yeah.
But when it's within, 100-mile radius, I'll usually drive to and from. And so a project like Rosslyn, I can go and shoot specific footage and then come back. And that was, but sometimes I'll describe a shoot as like, how many gear loads and unloads, or how many setups and teardowns.
Yeah, it's true.
Interviews is just 80% of the work of shooting an interview is setting up all the gear and then tearing it all down. And it might only be a 20-minute interview for a 4-hour chunk of work. And so when thinking about those unique trips to Rosslyn, it's every time you got to load up the rig and you got to drive all this way and unload the rig and set up all the gear and do all the stuff, and then have some conversations and learn and try to capitalize on that window. And hopefully you're getting the information captured that is going to tell the good story. But there's so much grunt work.
Yeah. And that's the hard part too, of like if you're in post-production and you're like, I missed that piece of the story, then you have to get pretty creative. When I did Don't Wait Project tours, my nonprofit, and I toured the first time by myself, 7 states, and filmed, and then the last two with a cinematographer who traveled with me.
Yeah.
My friends would say, "Hey, I'm going to come meet you," or "Hey," and I'm like, I'm in a different city every 2 days. Like, this is
Right.
not, this is not. I mean, a couple of times people would come out and meet me, and they were of great help. But I think that the timing, the organization, like sticking to the schedule, and weather and travel, and all these kinds of things that go into it, and it's a really great experience. And I think sometimes too, well, the lesson that you learn along the way, right? And like getting back from Carolina and missing one little piece of the story, and how do you have to get creative in how you fix that, depending
Yeah.
on how far you got to go. If it's someone here, great, easy, but not if it's someone far away.
Yeah, reshoots are near impossible if it's a place
Mm.
you have to fly to, or and you mentioned weather, and weather's been just kind of this constant, battle. And especially the last several years, we've basically had, like, summer is now fire season apparently. And so we're battling with smoke, and a lot of
Oh,
these
sure.
clients that I work for are, tourism, or, destination, locations that they want the weather to be good. And so we had a lot of work get rescheduled and, altered significantly because of the smoke this last year. And even this morning, I was shooting for Raven Wing Ranch. That's another client of mine that I'm helping promote. And the whole video was supposed to take place this last summer, and almost all the production had to get rescheduled. And now, because of our late snow, I'm still shooting as if it's like, warmer weather.
And it's not. No, so no coats and mittens, just
Not exactly like, okay, take the coat off. All right, get a good shot. Okay, now you can get warm again. Um, so it's just this constant, joke. Filmmaking is trying to do a good job and then getting bombarded with like 10,000 miscellaneous interferences or distractions. And, I guess the trick is to then try to, navigate as many problems as you can and still come out on the back end with a
yeah.
decent story.
Yeah, I try to tell myself that too. Like that little piece, say, for one, the audience doesn't know that they missed it. As long as you have the continuity of the story, right? Or you can voice it in. There's all the tricks, but you do such a beautiful job of it and have for such a long time. In fact, I want to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the dwelling place, because you just did a new project for them, and it had been 15 years. So I want to talk about the lessons you learned along that part of your journey. We'll talk more in just a moment. We were finishing up with you, Charley. I think we could have done a two-parter here, but we're going to get through it. So I wanted to talk about the dwelling place, because you did a video for them, a production 15 years ago, and then you just did another one. And tell us about the premise of that story and the 5 amigos.
Yeah, so the dwelling place it's an adult family home started by Kathy Bankson and her family. She had a son with special needs, and she wanted to create a home that could support her son and some friends to live there as well. And so they started this home, and there's five guys who live there, and they call them the 5 amigos. And for from 2002 until, I guess it would have been maybe 3 years ago now at this point. It was like mid-COVID when this transition happened. The original tenant and Kathy, they moved to South Dakota to be closer to some of their family, and that freed up a spot for a fifth to replace that 5th amigo. And so they wanted to update the film. I had made a film for them 15 years ago now, so I can't remember exactly what year it was, but 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. And I remember back when I made that film and just being so touched by them. And anyone who is familiar with the 5 amigos and being out in the Upper Valley area, you've seen them around town, and they're just like these super, like, just positive, loving, fun characters that are, working around town. And they're all getting older, and they're all staying home a lot more, and so they're out in the public a little less. And the story hasn't necessarily faded in terms of the dwelling place, but I think it's a little bit less out there in the forefront. So we wanted to update the film partly to include this 5th amigo, but also just kind of remind the community of what a special, place this is and the service that it provides. And, you know, of all the projects I did this last year, like that was one that stood out to me as being just, I felt so, I kind of just felt vulnerable, like as a person and as an artist, to just be here and tell this story and kind of mark this time in history of, like, you know, this is a place that is doing a great thing for these, you know, great community members. And then cutting it together, it was just like, how do you cut stuff out? It could have been a 20-minute film easy, but I had to get it down, you know, to 6 or 7 minutes, I think. But I think about that film often, and I've rewatched it a few times because it just feels good to just watch those guys in their home, you know, like.
Yeah. What is the difference in this last minute we have? What is the difference for you as a filmmaker from doing it 15 years ago to doing it now? Like, what part, obviously you're a storyteller, always have been, but what did you learn in the difference between those 15 years of what you could glean from their story or how you could share it?
Yeah, you know, I think that as a filmmaker, I've matured a little bit in terms of letting stories just sort of unfold and be. And I think that came out in this film of just being kind of a fly on the wall and being present in a real moment. And I think before I used to try to direct scenes a little more so, or guide things into, you know, like a wedge that fits this objective that I have. And I've pulled back from that, you know, that way of filmmaking quite a bit, and I've let things just unfold more organically. And it feels better to me, but it also feels more respectful and true to the story. And, you know, to me, I feel like that separates, you know, a branding film from a documentary. And a documentary is just like, you know, a more authentic capture of the human experience.
And I'm sure they enjoyed it.
They did, and sometimes I feel like they either forgot I was there or they were distracted by the idea of just hosting me, and they wanted me to just participate and do things with them.
Oh,
And I'm
well,
kind of like, oh, I've got a camera. Just let me be in the corner here
yeah.
and warn me for a little while.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to give us the clips to show to everybody. And I just, like I said, I have such respect for your work. And you've been on my show a couple of times, and I'm sure you'll be on it again. And just keep up the good work. I love the stories that you tell and the way that you tell them. And I'm so happy that you're someone who got to get past that 7-month mark of giving up and getting all the way to the 9 years it took you to get there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And likewise, great work.
Yeah. Thank you so much.